Ignore the hands that are really messy. I was busy playing with some brush pens and stuff went sideways. So I'm gonna actually draw just a random skull, and then I'm going to ink it with a, I always pronounce this terribly, Tachikawa dip pen. So there's different nibs that you can purchase, and they have some little give to them. They're pretty flexible. And I'm gonna be using a carbon ink, a carbon black ink. It's very opaque, and it's also waterproof, which is wonderful. And after I ink it, maybe I'll use some Copic markers and play around with some color. So this is probably one of the more fun parts of the whole process, is just being able to work out a weird design, not knowing where it's gonna go. Now, when I was trying to ink with the dip pen, I ended up accidentally dipping my hand in parts that were really wet, and I ended up smearing the drawing a little bit, and you can see it kind of dropped, a little drop on the page that was unintentional. I was like, all right, let's just work with it. So I ended up using a brush to kind of fill out some more areas and kind of block out darker shapes. And I often see artists like Jim Lee using a regular old brush and some ink and just doing some phenomenal artwork. And I was like, all right, let me just do what he does and copy from someone who does it amazingly well. So yeah, I used a brush to kind of fill out that area, and then here I am kind of adding more texture with the pen here, just kind of adding little strokes and dashes and just things to make it look more gritty and textured. I put down a piece of paper hoping that I can kind of prevent more smearing, but you'll see later on in this video that it just kind of goes sideways. Honestly, I probably should have waited for some of this to dry a little further before I continued to try to ink certain areas, just because my hand kept going over stuff. So the end result from the inking process started to look a little wild. But in the next stage, I am going to pull out some Copic markers and block out some overall tones and work on shading. I honestly don't know if this is dry enough, and I've already made quite a bit of mess, but we're going to try this anyway. So I'm going to be using some Copic markers. I just picked the light caramel, so it's E55 light caramel. I might use the dark brown, so that's E47 dark brown, if you're interested in what its colors are. And yeah, I have no plans, so we're just gonna see what happens. Hoping this doesn't smear too crazy. Okay, so far so good. Just want to lay down the first little tone here. And the beautiful thing about Copics is they layer very well. So, see how this all looks. I had to remember to put down a sheet of paper underneath so it doesn't bleed to the page following this one. I use the dark brown. And then this back. Let's use, I don't know, like Soft Sun, so E21. I ended up using this marker to create some of the shadows and leaving some of the white parts of the page alone to create the highlights. And then following this, using another color to emphasize the shadows even further. I'm gonna use brick beige, so E31. Try the colorless blender on this helmet. The colorless blender allows you to soften areas and even fix some mistakes. So I use this to push some ink around and kind of clean up some of the border lines and stuff, but it also will leak through the page. So it's a good idea to have a piece of paper underneath it when you're using this as well. Okay, so now I'm gonna use this other brand here just because I wanted to fill a larger area. Yeah, I honestly forgot how much this cost. I had bought this in a big pack, but this is a basic gray number 4. I mainly just use this marker to block out the background, and I did accidentally paint over some areas, so I ended up needing to use a white gel pen to kind of bring back some of those highlights and rim lighting. So I had 2 white gel pens. One was a Uniball Signio, which is a lot more opaque. However, the ink was pretty much dried up, so I couldn't really use that one that much. And also I had a Jelly Roll by Sakura, and it worked, although that brand, at least to me, seems to not be as opaque, so you do have to layer it up quite a bit. I think I'm gonna call this little doodle finished, and yeah, wrap this up here. Hopefully you enjoyed.